Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 40th anniversary webinar presentation series. Today's presentation is going to be on teacher reflection by Dr. Aspasia, Dania. During this presentation, I hope you all enjoy, and I will be creating certificates of attendance. So please do put your name in the chat box so I know who is here and what name you would like on your certificate. Without further ado, I'll pass you over. Aspasia.
Hello, welcome all. Thank you very much, Ellen. We're very glad being here. I see lots of people from Greece, and I'm very happy about it. We are within the Teaching Games for Understanding community, and I'm very honored and glad to be here among this community. Today, we're going to talk about reflection in teaching, and we will use the example of game-based approaches as an example, as a point of reference. I have created a Padlet, so at the second half of the presentation, I will ask you to join the Padlet and share your opinions there about the reflection and about reflection in teaching. But during the presentation, it would be very nice if we could have an interaction in order to discuss some issues that that we face within our teaching concerning reflection. So I will start sharing my screen, and I will stop at specific moments during my presentation in order to ask a question or launch a discussion or hear something, a comment of yours. But please feel free, if you have some questions, you can put them on the chat. And as Ellen said, please put also your names on the chat, because Ellen is going to send you some certificates of attendance. So I'm starting with sharing my screen. So everybody can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So today's issue is teacher reflection, and I very much like to focus on teacher reflection because it's something that concerns me very much during my teaching. After thinking about my content, I want to think about myself in teaching this content. So I think that reflection is very important. So within game-based approaches, teacher reflection is very significant. In teaching in general, the reflection is significant, but in game-based approaches, I think it's specific and significant because I think that game-based approaches are a human-centered way of practice. We, as teachers or as coaches, have to be thoughtful, have to be compassionate, have to step back and observe in order to ask questions that will launch our students' creativity, empathy, and playfulness to interact and cooperate within their games. So in order to do all this, we need to reflect on what is happening during gameplay and what we are doing as we are observing what is happening. Reflection, as you can see, is very central to our teaching success because as teachers or as coaches, according to what we observe during the gameplay, we need to formulate questions. We have discussed about questioning in another webinar. We need to gather and organize answers in order to interpret and analyze them and draw some effective conclusions for communicating with our students or with our players. So during all this spiral process, I think we need to reflect on what is happening at every stage, reflect on the questions that we're asking, on the data that we're gathering, on the way that we are interpreting the data that we are gathering, and also on the conclusions that we're drawing, because in this way we will communicate our content to the students. So We just don't need only to give instructions in order how to play the game, but we also need to see if students are understanding, are recalling, are analyzing, are synthesizing these instructions in order to be wise players. But how much reflection and what type of reflection? There is no specific answer here. It depends, is the answer. It depends on the context. Where are we? Are we in physical education? Are we in coaching? What kind of learners do we have in front of us? Are these learners young age, or they're older age, or are they novices, or are they experts? Are we in a sport club? Are we in a competition? Or are we just in a sport for all unit? What is the outcome? I used to tell my students every time that they need to be thoughtful of what are the outcomes of instruction. What are the goals of instruction? We just don't go out teaching without knowing what our goals are. And above all, with reflection, I think that the most important thing is our attributes. What type of teachers are we, and what type of teachers do we want to be? All these mix in order to help us engage in a different type of reflection. So I'm talking about reflection all this time, but I just I didn't take the time to ask you, what is reflection? So I would very much appreciate if somebody of you open up their videos and open up their windows and answer to the question, what is reflection? Or if you don't want to answer, you can also write your answer on the chat. What is reflection? I want an answer in order to build on this answer and move forward. So what is reflection, according to your opinion?
Can I say?
Yes, of course.
I think the right Greek words that mean the reflection is dialogue.
Okay.
Dialogue.
So
reflection.
The center or the focus of reflection is a form of dialogic interaction.
Interaction, yes, interaction. Dialogue is interaction.
With whom? Is another second question.
With the team with the students or with mates. We have to.
Okay. Okay. Do we have another opinion? Thank you very much, Petros.
Nice to speak to you.
You can write your answers on the chat, and building on Petros's answer, I think that it's not just only dialogue with our students or with our athletes, but it's mostly dialogue with ourselves, because I think that by reflecting, we start asking questions to ourselves, and this is the time that we need to be honest about our answers. So what is reflection? Reflection is a deep thinking process for me. It determines what we can actually know compared to what we believe or what we doubt. So it's a higher order thinking process that for me has to go beyond self-introspection to a commitment of questioning. And here is where dialogue comes. When we engage in higher order thinking, it's thinking about our way of thinking. Then we start self-introspect, and this way we commit ourselves to questioning as a teaching and instructional tool. So we cannot just engage, because sometimes in teaching games for understanding or in game-based approaches, we see that teachers and coaches have difficulty in engaging in questioning. And for me, this difficulty comes because we're not used to questioning ourselves, to start asking ourselves about our beliefs, about our orientations, about our ways of thinking, and engage in this way in a higher order thinking process that will familiarize us with questioning. So for me, the reflection is a very deep thinking process. It goes from what we observe, as I said before, to the so what will change in order to change this what, to the now what, meaning that from now on, what are we going to do? Are we going to change the way that we are acting, or are we just staying in the what? This process is not easy and it's not linear. It doesn't happen just one day you wake up and you say, today I'm going to reflect. No, it's very difficult. And for me, a key issue in reflection is engaging in communities of practice or communities of learning. This community, the Teaching Games for Understanding community, is a very special community for engaging in various types of dialogues and reflection about what we are doing. And it's a context that is very helpful in order to learning who we are, what we are doing, and if we're going to change, what we're going to change. From what I've told you so far, you may have in your mind something like this. Oh God, I'm going to reflect. I need to do all this. I have to take risks. I have to tolerate. I have to negotiate. I have to teach. I have to observe. I have to take notes and all this. But this is the magic of teaching for me. Teaching is not a technical issue. Teaching is a human-centered issue. So if you want to teach humans, you have to engage in their lives. You have to engage in their ways of interacting. So forget about reflection. Just think that you have students in front of you, that you have people in front of you with needs. You need to empathize, to be caring for those people. And if you start being caring, then it's easy for you to reflect. And if you start reflecting, it's easier for you to be a critically reflective teacher. So this mess is something that happens, but this is the magic of reflection. We need to move from cognition, here it's cognition, so it's a syntactical error. We need to move from cognition to reflection, but we need to move from metacognition to meta-reflection. Metacognition is thinking about thinking, and meta-reflection is reflecting about the way we are reflecting, because sometimes we are reflecting by answering to this question. What happened today? This happened today. What will I change tomorrow? This I will change tomorrow. And this is reflection. It's a reflection on technical issues. But if we engage in a thinking that says, why did this happen today? It's a different level of reflection. And it's this that I call meta-reflection. It's the way that we are thinking about our thinking. My daughter studies physics. I'm a complete novice in physics. I don't have any idea of this slide, but I found it very interesting. It says here in physics, we have two types of reflection. We have the regular reflection, when a parallel beam of light falls on a smooth and highly polished surface, and then it's reflected also in parallel to a fixed direction. But we also have diffused reflection, when this parallel beam of light falls on a rough surface and the reflected light is not parallel, but is spread over the wide area. So consider that reflection, our thinking, is this parallel beam of light, because when we reflect and we ask questions about what we are doing, we are shedding light on our way of thinking. If this light goes on smooth surfaces, means on already established beliefs that we don't critically analyze, then we are reflected in the same way with these beliefs, without considering whether or if these beliefs are right or wrong. But teaching is not a smooth surface or highly polished. For me, teaching and the teaching court is a rough surface. Rough meaning with a positive and a negative way. It's a mixed context of needs, of people, of desires, of abilities. So you have to take care of this. So your parallel beam of light, your reflection, cannot be reflected in parallel, meaning with the same results for all. So I'm very happy that I found physics, even if I cannot understand physics, and I want, and I also advise you to reflect in a diffused way, because you have different kinds of people when you are teaching. But how can I do this? I'm not prepared, you may ask. Yes, I think you are not prepared. No one is prepared. You have to have self-awareness. You need to be spontaneous and have an insight about what you are doing. And most of all, you have to be determined, because this will not be an easy process. It will not be linear, as I said in the start. You will start and you will move back, and then you will move 3 steps forward and then again back. And this is the way that you are trained to be reflective. So this is where you need the presence of a critical friend. This is where you need the support of a community to help you build your self-awareness, to help you be spontaneous, or if you are already very spontaneous, to help you grow this spontaneity, and also to be determined, because if you have something in front of you, a goal in front of you to teach physical education or to train future athletes, you should be determined, because this is their future and you are going to do what is best for them. So students will usually ask, how are we going to do this? Do you have some guidelines? I usually say, I'm sorry, I don't have specific guidelines, because as I said before, teaching is a rough process. But there are some models, and the model type of thinking is very useful in our case. There are some models that exist in general teacher education literature for many years now, with Shen's model of reflection being one of the most prominent, to train your reflection, and not train only your reflection, to train your reflection about reflection. So one model is Gibbs' model, meaning that first of all, you describe what happened today in a lesson or in an activity or in a task. Second, what are your feelings about what happened? Because we need to focus on our feelings when we want to reflect. What are we thinking about our feelings? Was it a good or a bad experience for us and for the students as well? The stage of analysis and conclusion needs to be something that you need to be trained, meaning that at the beginning, you will only analyze the surface of what has happened. And this is okay. Don't worry if you're analyzing only that they didn't learn the passing or they didn't learn the dribbling. This is okay. This is a first level of reflection, technical reflection. What else could we have done if we don't want this to happen again? And this is the action research stage, when we develop our action plan. If this that happened arose again, what are we going to do? These are some short steps that if you follow day by day or week by week, and in a very small efforts during your teaching, then you will be acquainted to the whole idea, and you will not leave teaching without doing this. Another model is, what are the components of our reflection? What caused you to reflect? Was it something, an undesired behavior, or is something that happened and it went well? How were we reflecting? Were we reflecting on a technical basis, or we're going deeper in our thinking? Why are we reflecting? Someone told us that we need to reflect, or it's something that is an implicit need of ours? And on what are we reflecting? These are also some things that will help you categorize your thinking during reflection. Another model, which is the basis of action research, is Kolb's learning cycle of experiential learning. You first focus on concrete experience, what happened, what is in front of you. You reflect on your experience and you make an abstract conceptualization. For example, some students are dribbling. This is the concrete experience. Some of them are not so skillful. I'm reflecting. Why are they not skillful? Maybe the task is not modified according to their needs. So modification is the abstract concept that comes as the focus of reflection. So I use afterwards modification in order to actively experiment on another task that will be the next concrete experience. So this cyclical process will help us very much to go step by step in changing our way of teaching. And for me, the important thing here is to focus on concepts, not only on content. And the new curricula for physical education focus very much on concepts apart from content. And with whom are we reflecting? I said before, we need critical friends. Yes, we do, because we cannot reflect only about ourselves. It would be very nice if we had some peers and some good colleagues that could help us in the teaching and learning and reflecting process and help us move further in what we're planning in the previous steps. By reading literature relative to reflection, I stepped on the anatomy of teacher reflection. So this is the focus of today's presentation, to present you a categorization that suggests the different anatomical parts of our reflection. This is a theoretical framework presented by Wackerhausen, if I spell this name correctly. And he said that the reflection has 4 anatomical parts. It's reflection on, reflection with, reflection from, and reflection in. So these parts I'm going to present you in the next slides. Why do we need this anatomy of reflection? My focus point here in the Teaching Games for Understanding is that we should stop teaching content and we should start teaching children. So the questions that we're going to ask ourselves need first to be, what are people for and how can schools help them? What is the relationship between a good school and a good work or a living well? In the game-based approaches, what is the relationship between a good coaching approach and a living well with games, enjoyment with games? What is worth knowing and how is this worth different for every person? And how might we, as the Teaching Games for Understanding organization or schools on sport clubs, reconceive the above? What is the relationship between school and social justice? What is the relationship between games and social justice? And how does a connected planet change the kinds of things a person needs to understand? How does a connected community like ours change the kinds of things that a child or an athlete needs to understand about games, about teaching, about coaching? So for me, these are the questions that we should ask ourselves, first of all, before engaging in designing content. So the first anatomical part of reflection, according to the taxonomy I presented you, is reflection on. So my suggestion is that we all start by reflecting on topics that are typical or central in our field. Central in our field are teaching and coaching. So one of the questions we should ask ourselves first is teaching games for understanding or game-based approaches, teaching with game-based approaches, educational? And why? I think this is a question that we have all answered lots of time ago when we engaged with the Teaching Games for Understanding, because we have found value in game-based approaches. But the question is why we found value in this approach, why we found value and said that this is educational. So this is another question that I'm asking you. Is teaching with game-based approaches educational? And why? Dimitra.
Hello, everyone. In my opinion, I think that is very educational because it depends on the needs and interests of students. We can transform the lesson so that is compatible for all.
Okay.
So, and with this, children will be enthusiastic. They will like the lesson.
This answer, thank you very much, Dimitra. This answer that Dimitra gave me is an answer that you may also have given if we spoke in Greek, because I see lots of Greek colleagues, or if we spoke in your language. So by start interrogating on this and reflecting on this issue, I think we should go back to our philosophy and the way that we're approaching our teaching. And we will find value in the way that we have also found value when we engaged in the game-based approaches. The next type of reflection is reflection with. So the idea here is to continue our answer to the previous question by reflecting with concepts that are inherent in the philosophy of our teaching. These concepts, the philosophy of our teaching is based on our beliefs and our orientation. Some of us have a strong teaching orientation, but others have a strong coaching orientation. So this orientation comes from our beliefs that come back from our philosophy. And questions here are, what are the benefits of using questioning as an instructional strategy? Because at the beginning I said that in game-based approaches, we use questioning. So why do we use questioning? We found benefits in this if we use it, or we believe in its benefits. But what are the benefits? We need to make them explicit, because if we make them explicit, then it will be more relevant to apply in their practice. Or in the teaching games for understanding and the game-based approaches, we apply constraints. We don't all apply the same constraints when we use games. What kind of constraints do I use in my coaching or in my games, and why? These come from our orientation towards teaching. So it's an answer that needs to be explicit in our minds, and because it will help us if we want to make our questioning better or to make our working with constraints better, we need to answer this question. So I am asking here, what are the benefits of using questioning as an instructional strategy? Why shall we use questioning? You can answer in Greek if you want, and I can translate it. Okay, I will give you the answer. Petros.
Ξέχασα την ερώτηση.
Γιατί είχαμε ρωτήσει, ναι. Why do we use questioning?
Yes, because we want, as teachers, to make the minds of our students up.
Okay, as another participant says here, Dimitris, is to motivate others.
To motivate them, yes. Generally, to move up, yes.
To make the lesson interactive. I have another answer. Alexandra.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say the same, that it makes the student more active in our lesson.
Okay, so we believe that with questioning, we trigger their motivation, and also by triggering their motivation, we make them active to wake up their awareness. In order to put children in a position, this is our answer on the chat. of thinking different answers to the same question. So by thinking different answers to the same question, we will help them analyze what is happening, and we want them to analyze what is happening in order to be wise game players, to become involved. And these answers here, the divergence of your answers here, state that teaching is rough. We don't need to motivate everybody, because some will be motivated, some others not. We don't need to be interactive for everybody, because not everybody is able to interact in the same way. But by modifying and having these answers explicit, we know what our students need. We're talking about students' needs, and we need to be specific. What are these needs are according to their perspectives. I have also another answers that some problems will exist with hyper or introvert students. Yes, this is also the reason. So if we have different types of students, we need to be attentive to their needs and to use questioning according to their needs and abilities. Questioning is not always effective, and we have different levels of questioning. Sometimes questioning will be only used for recalling knowledge. What are the rules of the game? But in other cases, questioning will be used for analyzing. What happened when you moved in possession of the ball and there was this player that came and helped you, supported you? So in order to move to the steps of the ladder, what happened, so what will we do in the future? We need to be very specific of what we are observing and to understand their needs. So the following level, or the following anatomical part of reflection, according to this taxonomy, is reflection from. Here, I think it's a very sensitive point, because we usually reflect from our perspective according to our class, to our gender, to our race, and to our culture. And I said before, our students or our athletes may not be the same class, the same gender, the same race, and the same culture. So let's start reflecting about our perspectives. Why are we engaged in teaching or this specific task? Why are we so interested or motivated in competition in our games? Or why are we applying a less student-centered perspective in what we are doing? This depends on some of our perspectives based on our attributes. So a question is, am I equally concerned about all my players' skillfulness, or I'm just focusing on the more skillful ones? Or am I investing on everybody's personal responsibility and forgetting about social responsibility within the game? Am I fair to all, to boys and girls? Am I fair to students from other races or other cultures? So these are also questions that need to be answered, because we start teaching about games and we're applying game-based teaching in our practice. But sometimes maybe the games that we are choosing are very focused to a specific gender attributes or specific class attributes or specific race attributes and culture attributes. In today's multicultural societies, it's very important to stay attentive to everybody's needs and help for social justice, as I said at the beginning, play the game according to their ways of understanding. So teaching games for everybody's way of understanding. And the final, Dimitra, you want to answer, to tell something here?
Yes, I would like to add something. I truly believe that empathy is a very crucial characteristic for a teacher's personality, because when someone has empathy, can see things from another perspective. But if you don't have empathy, you will always accuse others for your problems. So you must put yourself in the position of the others. You must know the interests, the needs of your students, so you can make a plan for your lesson.
Yes, this is very important to be in their shoes. It's not very easy to be in everybody's shoes, but it's very important because you start thinking from their way to you. And this is why the human-centered way of practice comes. And this is where our community can help us, because we think, we find people from different cultures, and we talk with people from different cultures. This is very important to start thinking of how are they playing games in their countries. What are the attributes of game-based play approaches in every country, and see different cultural perspectives or ethnic perspectives in game-based teaching, and also engage afterwards in things that we can put in our own practice. So this is very interesting that you are suggesting. And the final anatomical part of reflection is to reflect in different settings. What does this mean? We usually reflect within the context of the safety of our school, the safety of our sport club, or the safety of physical education or sport. If we change context and reflect in different contexts, for example, in out-of-school clubs, or in touristic sites, or in general classrooms, and start reflect by being and attending lesson in different settings, or from the perspectives of different disciplines, for example, sociology or psychology, whose voice or what types of voices are included in the context where I usually reflect? Us in physical education and sports science are very much dominated in a way by sports science perspectives, physiology, biomechanics, statistics. But if we want to teach in a human-centered way of practice, sociological concepts, psychological concepts, or philosophical concepts, or historical concepts may be relevant in the way we are reflecting. But another question is how easy to engage or in reflection outside of my daily circumstances. And this is something that happens when we engage in social networks or communities of practice where people from different disciplines or from different domains of teaching comes. I got to know some colleagues that they're teaching physics or in general education, and we are discussing about game-based approaches in the classroom of physics or in the classroom of literature. And there I found many relevant concepts that I didn't use in reflecting from my discipline in physical education and sports science. So it's very nice to leave your comfort zone and start talking with people from different disciplines and different contexts in order to be able to see what is happening generally in education and make some decisions according to what is happening generally. So after using all this framework, what are some practical ideas? Because we all want to know about some practical ideas and ways that all this can be transferred to our practice. So there is lots of material on the internet if you want to search about reflection, and there are lots of things that different categorizations and taxonomies that you can focus on. But in general, if you need to engage in different parts of reflective practice, I think these 9 steps are very nice in order to give you some directions. First of all, study your teaching. Lesson study that our colleague Naoki Suzuki from the Teaching Games organization is doing is very, very important. What happens there? We teach and we study our teaching. Also self-study as a methodology, or autoethnography as a methodology, or narratives as a methodology are very, very important tools that will help us to reflect regularly. At the second step, evaluate what you are teaching. Here is where action research. It's research on our action and action on our research. After, you can start looking at the literature to link what you are doing, your practice, with theory. We need to make some links between theory and practice, and this will help us move forward. We need to question our personal theories and beliefs. Why am I using games? Why are they educational? What are my beliefs about boys and girls' skills? In order to be able to engage in alternative perspectives. And how can we engage in alternative perspectives? We can do this within conversations with colleagues. Try out new strategies. Don't be afraid that it will not work. Teaching is messy. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work as far as it is safe for everybody. Maximize the learning potential by inclusive practices. This is where modifications are very important. Enhance the quality of your teaching and always ask yourself about the quality and what is quality in your teaching. And above all, continue to improve as we are doing today by being present in webinars, seminars of professional development. These are things that you don't need to do from 1 to 9. You may start reflecting regularly and never engage in inclusive practices. It's okay. It's a part of, it's a dimension of reflective practice, and it is important. Some practical tools. You can record yourself as you are teaching. We all have mobile phones. We can record our thinkings, or we can add some notes to our mobile phones, or we can take some videos if we have asked for permission and share these videos with our professional learning networks if we have taken permission. Please invite colleagues to observe your class. This is very important because you start seeing things from others' perspective. Ask your students for feedback. Stop being very authoritative in your class and ask for your students' feedback. Ask yourself daily, how did it go? And how do you know that things went this way? Keep a blog or a journal. And I also invite you to the Teaching Games for Understanding blog, or to our community blogs or journals to add your narratives or to add your perspectives. Be honest, but not be critical with yourself, because as I said before, things usually don't happen the way that we want them to happen. And this is okay as far as everybody is safe. Surround yourself with this enthusiasm that we need in our teaching. Look for what is working and keep some statistics if things work or things don't work. And all this will help you and will trigger your desire for reflection. The Teaching Games for Understanding blog and many others blogs are very nice places that we can all share our reflective comments, and also some forums, discussion forums are also very nice context for reflecting. So I will put you in the chat the link to a Padlet that I have created, and please go to this. Go to this Padlet, and you can add your thinking there. In this Padlet, you can find a document. I can't go to the Padlet. Sorry. Do you have some questions before I copy paste the Padlet? Ellen, for a reason, I have some problem with the Padlet. Can I send it to you by email and put it on the chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know what is happening in my computer, and the copy paste doesn't work in the chat. I don't know what's happening. So,
yes, send it through.
Yes, I will send it through. Is there a question that something that you wanted to discuss?
Can I ask something?
Yes.
Because I make a reflection with myself. This is the theme of our discussion, and I say your presentation today was because of teaching games for understanding model or reflection takes from this model, or model takes from reflection. Or reflection used in model in the way that model are using.
It's general. Yes, Ellen, here is the Padlet. Before I answer to your question, thank you very much, Ellen. I will show you a little bit the Padlet. I have uploaded, let me show it to you. I have uploaded on the Padlet a document. You can go to this document and you can download it to your computer, and afterwards add it to the Padlet with some short descriptions of for example, there is a question on the document said, I teach because. Why are you teaching? Why are you a teacher? This is a first level reflection. Also, please describe some enjoyable moments of your teaching, or some engaging tasks. So, or some engaging strategies, or some challenging moments. You can download this document and add it at your pace, not necessarily now, but please give us your point of view here about reflection by writing on the Padlet. So I come back to your question, Petros, and the answer is that when you are teaching and you are looking for different ways of teaching, you find something that is relevant for you. For me, teaching games for understanding or game-based approaches, and for you, as I know as well, as a very relevant way of practice. So I reflected on how to be a better teacher, and I came up with TGfU. I reflect on TGfU and I go back to why I became a teacher. So this is a two-way process. You can apply this both in game-based approaches and in teaching generally.
May I use reflection in another model?
Everywhere in teaching.
Okay. Yeah, okay. But when we are in correct models, in good models, so it's good for us and the others to use reflection. Okay, it's very good.
We can use reflection in the webinars, for example. What went well during the webinar and what didn't go well. Those webinars are part of our process of professional learning. Why are we in webinars? Why are we doing this interaction today? It's part of from our professional development, and it's a professional development around teaching or our coaching. So it's a way of becoming a better teacher, first of all, but most of all, through reflection, you're becoming a better person, for me. So, and the key point is, don't criticize yourself. Be honest with what happened, but don't be critical. It's very important, because if you started being critical, for example, nothing worked well today. It was a complete disaster. And if you keep following this mindset, then you will stop reflecting. Okay, nothing went well. Okay, what are we going to do? What is our action plan for the next time? Because it's natural for nothing to go well sometimes. It depends. Do we have some other question?
Thank you for your answer.
Something, thank you very much, Petros, or some other comment. I have on the chat, how did you recognize students' needs and difficulties? And what approaches or models have you practiced? For example, let's take an example. We have designed our lesson plan, and we have designed a game that we are expecting, a passing game. We have divided 5 versus 5, and we have designed a game where the rules are very simple. You have to pass the ball to everybody, and in 2 minutes, the team that wins is the one that has the most, the highest number of consecutive passes. During this game, so the children start playing the game. During this game, we observe, because if you want to reflect, you need to let them play the game. During the playing of the game, you observe that some students cannot catch the ball easily. It falls off their hands. You observe it once, you observe it twice, then you realize that this game is not the best game for these specific students, because their needs or their difficulties are in passing or in receiving. Some other students may be more introvert, as it was suggested before, and may not stand in the position to receive a pass. They may be skillful in passing or receiving, but they're introvert or unmotivated and don't play actively within the game. So they have a different need. So we have observed with one game 2 different needs, and needs based on motor skills and needs based on social skills. By modifying the rules of the game, we devise a different game that has a different way of passing and receiving, for example, with a bounce pass, so as to give them time to be ready to receive the ball, or with different other types of pass that have to the ball to go from player to player many different times, in order to include students that are introvert and they're not in position to play. By modifying the game and modifying the rules, then it's easier for you to come close to their needs. And this doesn't mean that will happen the next day they will play the game skillfully. It needs time, but this was a first moment of recognizing their needs. So another question is, how do we, if our approaches or models, what do we do? What the approaches of models are not working? Can we immediately replace it with another learning approach or model? Model-based practice or game-based approaches are broad terms in instruction, meaning that if we want to apply models or approaches, you must give them time in order to settle to the needs of the class. If you are trying with game-based approaches or model-based approaches in the long run, and this is not working, 2 things may happen. The first thing may be the reason. The first is that you have not traced or recognized the students' needs according to the context. So you didn't make the right observations for different reasons. I don't know, for different reasons. The other is that you have engaged in a model, a model or an instructional approach that you do not believe because somebody else told you that it is effective. For me, the first step is to recognize our beliefs and say, I am an advocate of game-based approaches because I believe that it is a human-centered way of practice, and this is something that falls within my orientations. If we don't feel comfortable or safe to use human-centered or learner-centered approaches, it's fine to stay with reproductive approaches and teach the way safely for everybody's needs in the best possible way that we can, because from every instructional approach and from every instructional model, you get different outcomes. So it depends. If you are an advocate of motor outcomes, please use reproductive teaching approaches. If you want to add social outcomes or cognitive outcomes or emotional outcomes as well in your instruction, try with other models such as the game-based approaches or teaching games for understanding model. And if you don't feel sure about what you are doing, please engage in communities of practice or in professional development seminars or from people that have knowledge and skills to help you, because you may believe in an approach but not feel certain professionally to apply it. It's okay. We all start from somewhere. We all ask for help from colleagues. It's fine for me. Another question is, can you give us an example of reflection that you have used that had been practiced by you? Oh, thank you very much for this question. I will give this example, and with this, I think we are closing our webinar. When I was an undergraduate student, I had some coach at the university that told me I was the worst basketball player in the world because my sport profile was from ballet and from track and fields. I never played basketball as a young person. But when I graduated, and with this criticism for me that I'm the worst basketball player, whenever it was the time to teach basketball to my students, I felt as the world collapsed. I couldn't understand basketball. So my reflection was, how can I teach basketball? It's a team sport that is very valuable for my students. And by looking at models or approaches for teaching, I came across to game-based approaches and teaching games for understanding. And this is when I understood basketball. So my reflection was, how can I be a good teacher, but even if I'm a worst basketball player? And I came, by this reflection, I started looking and reflecting on the ways that I feel comfortable and safe. And within the game-based approaches, I found the comfort to teach basketball to my students. So this is my personal example. And I encourage you to engage in similar types of reflection in things that you feel that you are not so skillful, because as teachers are teachers, because coaches need to be more skillful in their sport. As teachers, we're not athletes at the same time. We may be athletes, but it doesn't matter if we are not super athletes, as far as we are super teachers. And the first characteristic of super teachers is to be caring for their students. And this is, Daphne, this is self-improvement. Yes, reflection is a type of self-improvement. And if you apply it in the long run, not only one day and then you forget about it. So Ellen, I don't know if you have time.
Ellen, give us time.
Yeah, go on, you can have time.
Hey.
Ellen is giving time.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Thank you, because I have an excellent question. Can I can I ask something?
Yes, yes, Petros.
Yes, yes. It's good that we feel but as company, okay, we reflect ourselves, reflect with to others, reflect with ourselves. So we are very nice place. Okay, it is according to the needs of children. When someone asks you about needs of children, you answer needs for passing or for dribbling. But I think the needs of children are, the first need is to express themselves.
Okay.
Are inner things, not basketball or passing or dribbling, or are the tools that we have to fill their needs, the inner needs. Okay. So
movement and games are the media.
Yes, that's the media. The media, yes, this. So we have to put our domain in another level. We have to know the kinetic or the movement domain, the movement things, but we have to go to solve problems. And the words that I listened yesterday is self-advocating in physical education. Like we have to do many things with tools like teaching games, understanding, or other models, and to care about children. Okay, nothing more. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ellen Gables. Thank you. Okay, Aspa, I want you to tell me something. I like you very much to listen to you. Okay, tell me.
Yes, I very much agree that the movement and games are the media to make children competent, enthusiastic, and players for life. So this
authentic.
Is what we are doing. Authentic. This is what we are doing, and we are devoted. And that is why Saturday morning, evening, afternoon, night, I don't know, it's all around the world. This is why we are here, to join our efforts and to be advocates in order to help children thrive in this way. So let's engage in reflection about how we are doing and why we are doing this. Ellen?
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, and thank you to everyone who asked questions and engaged today. Thank you so much. We have our upcoming webinars. We've got a series that is starting on the 19th of November on learner-oriented teaching and assessment from our colleagues over at the University of Porto. So if you'd like to join that, we can send you the registration links. We also have our upcoming conference, which is on January 28th. So please do register and submit an abstract if you can. Beyond that, thank you for coming, and I hope to see you at our upcoming events. See you later.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.